Welcome into SportsZone All Access on this Monday, October 13th, and it has been a busy weekend on the gridiron, both college and high school. And let's dive right into some of the college action from Saturday. And we'll start up in Brookings, where SDSU picked up a 31-3 Hobo Day win over Northern Iowa. The Jacks offensively got off to a little bit of a slow start, just 14 points through the first roughly three quarters. They got a touchdown late in the third, three straight scoring drives in the second half, that one late in the third and then two in the fourth to really pull away in this game. But the defense looked really stout. 4 interceptions on the day, and this is a much different performance from last week where they gave up 30 points at Youngstown State. Big difference there on the defensive side of the ball, and that's exactly what head coach Dan Jackson talked about after the game.
The leadership really stepped up there, and 30 points is never going to be anything that's acceptable around here. So I was proud of how they prepared throughout the week, and then they played so free.
I feel like once we got going, there was no stopping us. So there was times where we kind of backed up there and just getting that first down. There was times it's going to be slow, but you just got to keep the guys locked in, keep going.
Keeping the guys locked in, that's what Chase Mason said, and Mason had a really good day. 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns help catapulting that offense as the Jacks have now won 33 straight home games. That's the 4th longest streak in FCS history. So really tough to win at Dana J. Dykow Stadium if you're an opposing team. The Jacks love to win in front of their fans, and they do it a lot. Up next at Murray State, and then it's the big game that everyone has circled, the Dakota Marker, NDSU and SDSU, coming up in a couple of weeks, but the Jacks on the road before then. Speaking of on the road, that's where USD was this past week. The Coyotes picking up a 19-14 win at Indiana State. The Yotes outgaining the Sycamores 376-210 in total offense. Big difference was in the rushing game. USD had a 190-85 advantage there. The lone touchdown in this game for the Coyotes was LJ Phillips Jr. Who else? The running back just continues to have exceptional games for the Coyotes. Will Leyland, really impressive. What else can you say about the Yotes kicker? 4 field goals on the game. And of course, in a tight game like this, a defensive struggle, all those points matter. And he did an exceptional job there. Coyotes win back-to-back games, and they get to 4-3. First road win of the season for the Yotes. Hard to believe. 7th game of the season, and they pick up their first win away from the Dakota Dome. So an impressive one for the Coyotes, who are now looking to just stack wins as we move through Missouri Valley Football Conference play. But quite possibly the most impressive win of the weekend was at the Division II level. Northern State with an upset win over Minnesota Duluth. That's number 10 Minnesota Duluth. 34-31 the final in this one. The Wolves scored late in the first half to go up 10 at the half. It was 20-10 at the break. Kind of held on to the lead throughout the second half. It was a late touchdown from UMD that made it a 3-point game, but then the defense coming up with an interception in the closing seconds to seal the win, and an impressive win for Coach Schmidt and the Wolves.
That's the best team that we've played in my time here, just in evaluating them and watching them and seeing how good they are. And I told them all week, I don't know how we're going to win this game, but we're going to win it. And you look through the stat sheet, and it don't look like we're the winning team.
I love that line right at the end there. You look at the stat sheet, and it doesn't look like we're the team that won, yet they came away with the win. A really impressive one, and a long time coming for the Wolves. This is their first top 10 win in over 2 decades. Hard to believe there. Just an impressive win for Northern State, who now moves to 4-2 on the season. And they have an interesting game coming up this next weekend. They play SMSU, a fellow NSIC team, but yet it'll go in the books as a non-conference game. their lone non-conference game of the season. Remember, Northern State didn't play week 1, but just a little more breakdown into it with the Wolves outgained by 75 yards in this contest, but the big difference, the turnover battle. 3 Minnesota Duluth turnovers. Northern State didn't cough up the ball once. That's a big difference in a tight game, a 3-point game. Turnovers. You always hear about coaches saying that they want to win the turnover battle, and they did just that. So an impressive win for Northern State up there in Aberdeen. Back in Sioux Falls, though, Augustana looked dominant in a win over Concordia St. Paul, knocking off the Golden Bears 50-10. Yeah, that's right, 50-10. A 40-point win for Coach Jerry Olszewski and the Vikings. Augie outgaining the Golden Bears 581 yards to 294. Yeah, 581 yards of offense. And the passing attack game for Rich Lucero Jr. and the Vikings looking really good. 275 yards through the air compared to 87. Now, think about the trend that Augustana has gone through the last couple of weeks where they have a close game, then a blowout. A close game, a blowout. Last week, a come-from-behind win over USF in the key to the city. A big fourth quarter where they win by 1 point, win it on a 2-point conversion. And then this week, the complete opposite. Just total domination for the Vikings. And now, 2 weeks ago, they held on against Winona. This one just a dominant win for Augustana, who now at 7-0 on the season. So talk about stacking wins. That's what the Vikings are doing. And finally, at the Division II level, USF picked up a big win over SMSU on the road. The Vikings, or I should say, the Cougars, putting up 618 yards of offense. And this one led by the quarterback, Tate Schaefer, the local product, getting the call under center. And he looked really good. He looked like peak Lincoln Tate Schaefer in this one. He had 384 yards of passing yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, went 21 for 34, and also ran for 70 yards as well as 2 touchdowns. So a big win for USF, who now gets back in the win column. The Cougars had dropped 3 straight games, bringing them down to 500, so they get back over 500, snapping that win streak. They're 4-3 now on the season and looking to just pick up some momentum after that really rough patch. Their 3 toughest games, three nationally ranked games the last couple of weeks, dropping all 3 of them. Now finally back in the win column. We'll see if they can pick up some momentum from this one. But that's a look at the college football action from this past weekend. When we come back, we switch gears to high school football, and we have a special guest in studio coming up. It is Jefferson head coach Eric Struck. We talk about the Cavaliers' exciting win over Harrisburg on Friday night, as well as what it's like in his first season leading the Cavalier program. That's coming up next when SportsZone All Access returns. Welcome back in to SportsZone All Access, and we have a special guest for this next segment, and it's Jefferson head coach Eric Struck. Coach, thanks so much for coming in today.
You bet, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Coach, an exciting win this last week. A lot of that I want to talk to you about, but we have to start with Friday night. Knock off Harrisburg, a big come-from-behind win, 31-28 the final in that one. Coach, you were down 21-0 early, and then you stormed back. Just take me through that contest.
Well, first half definitely didn't go our way. We had, I think, 4 turnovers in the first half, some ill-timed penalties. And then Harrisburg, credit them, they made some big plays, big run right off the bat, a couple big passes. About everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in that first half. But like our kids at halftime, they weren't frustrated, they weren't down, they weren't getting on one another. They were just calm, and they knew they had a chance. And if they just played a little bit better, we just eliminated some mistakes. And those big plays that Harrisburg got, sometimes those things kind of even out. We were just able to hit some big passes. And we really wore them down in the second half. We went really fast. The running game clicked, and we hit some big passes, and they were getting tired at the end. And our kids as our kids saw that, they kind of believed a little bit more, and they hung together, and it went our way at the end.
What were you most impressed with the way that your team stayed in the fight and was able to pull it out at the end?
They were never down. There wasn't any complaining on the sidelines. There wasn't any finger pointing. I mean, there was none of that. People may not believe this, but we have a team meeting on Tuesdays before practice, and we watched a video from Jocko Willink, and it was entitled "Good," and it was basically every setback that you have, you just look at it and you just say "good." And so that was kind of the message, not just for this week, throughout the season. Like, we kind of made it hard on ourselves with those 2 losses, and we're playing really good teams from here on out. We just look at it as an opportunity, like, good. We get to play good teams. We get to prove what type of team we are. So here we are down 28-7, like, good. Like, let's take this as an opportunity, and if things go well, we'll have a heck of a story to tell after the game, and that's just the way it worked out.
Looking at the season so far, you win your first 3 games, then you drop those 2 straight games, now back-to-back wins after that. Where have you seen the biggest growth from your group from the start of the season to this point?
I think from an offensive standpoint, the kids are learning a new system, so it's like an entirely new language. So that takes some time. And some of the stuff we do, in the pass game, it takes a while for the quarterback and receivers to get on the same page. So we've seen that grow and continue to grow throughout the season. We have a whole new offensive line coming into this season. We had to deal with some injuries there in the middle. So now that we're kind of healthy there, seeing those guys grow and progress. From a defensive standpoint, we had a lot of experience back, but it's all a new season, and we've had some communication issues and things like that, some breakdowns, and those guys have really done a really good job of getting on the same page, communicating better. And so those things are starting to come together at the right time for us.
Looking ahead to your stats so far this season, averaging 41 points per game on offense, holding opponents below 20 points per game. Which side of the ball do you feel like has been the biggest key to your success?
I think any team that's looking to win a championship or be there at the end, you have to rely on your defense. And with 9 starters coming back this year, that was our kind of goal, was we're going to rely on those guys. And they're getting better every single week. We're starting to kind of figure out everyone's role and where everyone's fit, and then who those depth guys are that can come in and help us. So, if we're going to get to where we want to go, and I think this is for every team, your defense is the one that's going to dictate that. So that's who we're going to lean on from here on out.
Your first year as the head coach at Jefferson, and Coach, I remember before the season you talked with Grant Sweeter and saying you learned so much already on the job and you haven't even played a game yet. What else have you learned now that you're most of the way through your first year?
It's not so much about the X's and O's. It's more the motivational stuff, the mental part of it, just making sure our kids are focused in practice during the week. If things aren't going our way during the game, making sure everybody's, up and being positive. So I probably spent a lot less time on the X's and O's than I did, as an offensive coordinator or whatnot, and more on the people aspect of it. And honestly, that part's really a lot more rewarding than just calling a play. And that's been a lot of fun, and it's been really interesting to dive into and get to do that a little bit more.
Where do you feel like you've seen the biggest area of growth from the group from earlier on and now and over the last couple of weeks specifically?
I think it's probably our intensity in practice. It's a little bit different maybe than what they're used to. So that takes time. They're not quite sure, what each segment is, what the intensity of each practice segment is. And now that we're really comfortable with that, the kids have really picked it up. We do a lot of good on good. And that takes a little bit of getting used to how you handle that as far as an intensity wise. And I feel like the last, 3 weeks, probably our practices have been really good. And hopefully we can continue that.
Well, 2 more games left in the regular season. Final home game is against Rapid City Central coming up this week, and then it's that big matchup against Brandon Valley to close out the regular season. Coach, what are you looking forward to seeing from your team over these final few games as the playoff push is right around the corner?
We just want continued improvement. Rapid City Central's a really improved football team. They have a really good offensive scheme, defensive scheme. They're well coached. So we want to see us progress from last week, eliminate our mistakes, and be able to take on opponent that likes to play a physical brand of football, and that'll just lead into the last game, another opponent that likes to play a physical brand of football. We're going to try to just focus more on ourselves and eliminate our mistakes, just be the best that we could be every week so that we're playing at a top level and we're kind of hitting our groove when the playoffs hit. But, I think if you look at the last couple of weeks in AAA, it's, the top 6 or so teams, it's fairly even, and anybody, if you don't show up when it's your time to play, anybody could beat you. So we just got to be at our best and be prepared for anything.
What are a couple of points that you're looking for improvement over this final stretch?
Well, I think we got to start games a little bit faster. Offensively, we had a really rough first half last week. And defensively, we gave up some big plays. And that was kind of something that happened during the O'Gorman game as well. So I think starting the game, and not necessarily like we have to be up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, but eliminate big plays right away, and move the ball a little more consistent at the start of the game, just to give confidence and maybe put that other team in a bind. So if I'm pointing out one thing, it's just probably the way we start games.
Well, Coach, 5-2 on the season, a really good start to the season for you guys, and just a couple of weeks left. Looking forward to seeing what the Cavaliers can do over the final stretch of the season and into the playoffs. Thanks so much for coming in today, and more SportsZone All Access coming up after this.
Thank you.
Welcome into the third segment of our show today, and we talked with Eric Struck there, a great conversation there, learning more about the Jefferson program. But another thing that happened this weekend, the WNBA Finals came to a close with Rapid City native Becky Hammon leading the Aces to yet another championship, the third title in the last 4 years for Hammon and Las Vegas. They knocked off the Phoenix Mercury 97-86 on Friday night in Game 4 to complete the 4-game sweep. And for Hammon now, 3 titles in the last 4 years leading the Aces. And just think about the job that she has done over that stretch, but especially this season. This was a team that was middling around 500 all season, or for the first half of the season. Then right around the midway point, the switch flipped. They win 16 straight games to close out the regular season, move all the way up to second in the standings, claiming the 2 seed right behind the Minnesota Lynx. And then they continued that momentum in the playoffs, ultimately winning the 3rd title in the last 4 years. But the cool thing with the finals this year was that it was 2 head coaches, both from South Dakota, as you see Nate Tibbetts there also leading the Phoenix Mercury. And so pretty cool that you had 2 South Dakotans in the WNBA Finals, but it was Asia Wilson who just powered her team to the win. The regular season MVP, the finals MVP as well, 31 points in at the closeout game. She averaged 28.5 points and 12 rebounds throughout the 4 games of the finals. And when you think about dynasties in the WNBA history, you have the Houston Comets winning 4 straight to start the league. Then you have the Minnesota Lynx, who won 4 titles in a 7-year stretch, was also in another finals in that run as well. And then you think about the Aces now, 3 titles in 4 years and a semifinal loss in the 1 year that they didn't win the championship. They're cementing themselves as the next great dynasty. And when you have an incredible coach like Hammon and the best player in the world in Asia Wilson, yeah, you're going to win a lot of games. But just the way that they were able to get this to mold together this year, they struggled in the first half of the season, a team that had high expectations all season long, and it just wasn't clicking. And then whatever Hammon did to get it to work down the stretch, and boy, did it work, and they were a lot of fun to watch. On the other side, Nate Tibbetts, what a great job that he did to bring the Phoenix Mercury back to the WNBA Finals. That's such a proud franchise when you think about all the great players that they've had throughout their run. The list starts with Diana Taurasi, but then Brittany Griner, Skylar Diggins. So many great players who you think of in Mercury uniforms, yeah, they're not there. Kalia Copper was one of the best players for Phoenix, Satu Sabali as well. And just an impressive job for Tibbetts to get that franchise back on the cusp of winning a championship. But the Mercury just running into the buzzsaw that was the Aces during that second half of the season and into the playoffs. Las Vegas is here to stay. Just so many good players surrounding Asia Wilson and just a great cast of characters that Hammond has there. So the WNBA season coming to a close. We'll get back to WNBA action next spring. I know it feels very far off, but a lot of basketball to be played before then. College starting up in a couple of weeks. The G League as well, the NBA in preseason. So a lot of basketball action to keep your appetite whet. And then, of course, high school basketball. How can I forget that coming up in just a couple of short months? But we step aside, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at the week ahead and some of the big games to be on the lookout for. You're watching SportsZone All Access here on KELOLAND Plus. Welcome back in to SportsZone All Access, final segment of the day today. And quickly, we'll take a look at the week ahead. It's a busy week. We, of course, have high school football on Friday night, college football on Saturday. But here's some marquee games and events happening throughout the week that you want to keep your eye on. SDSU and USD doing battle against each other in a doubleheader down in Vermilion on Saturday. First women's soccer, and then a couple of 100 yards away in the SCSC, the two square off in volleyball. So a really fun day in Vermilion. Both football teams are on the road. So if you're a USD or SDSU fan, go down to Vermilion, spend the whole day down there. Another in-state rivalry, USF and Augustana doing battle in also women's soccer and volleyball. Those are on separate days later this week, but in-city rivalry and a lot of fun when those two do battle. Augustana hockey, home for its first home series of the season as they welcome in Arizona State on Friday and Saturday night. So really fun to see the Sun Devils come here to Sioux Falls. And then on Saturday out in Rapid City, the high school soccer state championship matches for both boys and girls for classes AA and A. The A matchups are already set. Class AA has the semifinals coming up this week, and then the state championship matches coming up on Saturday. But that's all the time that we have today. We'll catch you next time on SportsZone All Access.